I want to let Lorenzo introduce himself. He's new on the open mic.
Hello. So I reside in the U.S. currently. I can't talk about my work. I have to leave that secret. So what I wanted to do was talk to, with my background, I have a similar background to some of the people in here. I wanted to talk to what Felipe said and what Wakar, is it Wakar?
Yeah, okay.
Nice to meet you. So
Thank you.
I am concurrence with you two. I think that number one, I stress what you said, which is pay attention to the next 48 hours. I think that when you look at the situation as a whole, what media and adversaries are doing, particularly for Russia, is I think that Putin is paying close attention to how his adversaries are acting in this event so he can know how to posture his next offensive. That's what I think this was for, was when we understand the idea of major offensives that Russia may or may not, act upon, they do know there are saboteurs within their midst. Because I do think, historically, when you think about the posturing of Putin, he wouldn't let something like this just be such a slap on the wrist, which is the reason why I take the position that you had taken that this was a false flag, and it's mainly to see how the West reacts, how Ukraine reacts, and like you said beautifully too, Belarus. It's a good way to seemingly right position the Wagner forces in Belarus potentially for a northern offensive. If they're looking to that option in the future without giving, what would you say, a direct obvious movement plan to Zelensky. So that's what I've immediately taken from this, because as you said, the lack of resistance from the MOD, allowing 25,000 troops to just move freely, and the biggest one you talked on is logistics. There's no way a seasoned commander like that is just going to start a coup without having secured numerous supply lines on his route to his objective. That is beyond sloppy for any military commander in power that literally is operationally in command today. No, you could find no army that would be that sloppy, I think, in today's military doctrine.
To play devil's advocate, Prigozhin could have felt backed in a corner, so he could have felt like he was screwed any way he turned, and so his only way was to try and fight his way out. Second, the Russian military doesn't want to kill 25,000 Russian soldiers inside their own country. Also, with civilian casualties, infrastructure damage, the whole embarrassment on the world stage, they wanted to make a deal or just contain that unit as much as possible till the very last minute before they actually had to start shedding their own blood, in my opinion. So, I mean, it could have been a false flag, but that would be pretty crazy, and I'm not sure what the upside is.
And it's not even proven also if there were 25,000 people. Can be 5,000, can be 2,000, can be
That's right.
1,500. Not proven. Nothing is proven.
Yeah.
And from the
True.
footage we saw, impossible to see 25,000 people. And it's impossible to organize that so fast also.
Yeah, my main concern, as
Guys,
you just touched on, Mr. Lambo and JB, is the fact of the matter is when we talk about refueling, what Walker, basically touched on is how many fuel lines were procured, how many, potential tankers, for, or even rations for their troops, right? Like when we think about this play, is all right. Say you hunker down, you entrench, right? You're like, okay, we're coming for the MOD. What is your plan if plan A doesn't work? These are contingencies that military commanders do think about. Okay, if we don't get gold point, what about black point? So when I look at this, I'm like, we've seen what they've done in Bakhmut, right? We've seen we have a track record of his operational, history and his record. And so for a man of his caliber who has outsmarted Ukraine, tactics, which is trained by NATO to NATO standard, by the way, I do not think that someone of his caliber could be so sloppy within the internals of Russia. That's the reason why I take that point.
I also saw a video where there was a Wagner guy supposedly in one of the Rostov, I guess, ordering food, like KFC or something at a fast food place. I mean, another thing too is like if there was any seriousness to it, like let's say you couldn't get a big logistical line together, you would at least put advanced teams ahead of you to secure gas stations in these cities along the route.
All of that, it's like falls
you
on
could always
though,
clean out
what
the
he
snacks
said,
and
though.
stuff to feed the guys if you really were desperate. I mean,
I mean,
you
why
just
do you-
don't send guys ahead to do that. So
If this is
Just
all a
talk about
farce, why
ammunition.
make the West case for them though? That's the part that doesn't add up. Because he goes through and makes the West case for them. Every point he goes through and makes the West case for them. So is there no reaction from the Russian government? That's why I think he's backed into a corner, because he ran his mouth so much. He put himself
but he's in a
directly in
corner and they
conflict with
just let him
Shoigu.
retire to Belarus.
Well, you said it beautifully earlier. I was listening because I got on because I heard somebody mention it beautifully. That I think here looking for, when we talk about these sanctions, right? I think Putin has a beautiful way of getting money, right? We talk about these sanctions. If Wagner is offered, a package, half now, half later, in terms of a coup or intelligence, I think Putin is fishing for those channels that may have potentially already been there and that could possibly pop up behind the scenes to entice his PMC to be like, okay, these are the bad actors that I know that have been actively working or could potentially are trying to work now that they see this hint of weakness against me. Right? We know that the operational command of a lot of special forces to create insurgency forces, right? That they're there to create, internal strife. And so that's what I think they may have been fishing for. You said they made the West case for them. The West is already, if you're in the West, right, you already know the media has already fundamentally been on this narrative since the beginning of this war. The narrative has not changed in the West, right? So, and if you look at Western media too, if you go in their comment section of mainstream, say CNN, Yahoo, you will see these people have fundamentally never changed their opinions or sympathies for Russia. So I think Putin knows that, and so he's like, the West's mind will never have been changed, but what I can do is I can choose to win this war, because I think Putin knows that fundamentally his foreign policy decision going 50 years even forward, that Russia will never be the West's friend. We saw it in 2001, because mind you, Russia has asked to be part of NATO several times, and the West has turned them away, particularly the US, and that's by design. So I think that Putin knows this historically. We've seen his interviews where he's talked about this at length numerous times, pleading to them, and I think he's sort of forsaken the idea that the West will ever warm up to him. And so I think he's sort of moving more so in a military versus a political perspective.